Hey everybody, good morning, good morning. It's about 8:43 in the morning here on Groundhog Day. It is February 2nd, 2023. Punxsutawney Phil did see his shadow, so we have 6 more weeks of winter, or so they say. All right, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take a little bit of time this morning. I'm going to take a look at the S&P 500. I'm going to take a look at Bitcoin. I'm not going to take a look at NASDAQ, but what I will say is NASDAQ has been a little more bearish compared to the S&P. Yesterday, that was also the case. So just to kind of take that into account, we do have some good earnings coming up. And we had some good earnings on Meta yesterday, up over 20% in after hours yesterday. But before I get into all of this analysis, as you all know, this is not financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor. You're responsible for your own trades, managing your own risk, doing your own research. And this is always just my opinion on the market. If you need access to our Discord, if you need access to our indicators, if you need access to our trades and all of that, you can find all of that information on BitDoctor.org. All right, so let's go ahead and move on into the chart. So I'm going to start here with the S&P 500. So obviously we had, from the COVID low, we had a huge move up, right? Up here into this level. And, you know, all in all, the market increased. Let's go ahead and measure this. We had an increase in the market of over 100%. And that lasted over the course of almost 2 years. If we take it from the bottom here, that was in March of 2020, and we went all the way through, this was January of 2022. So we were only about 3 months shy of 2 years. So a move of over 100% on an index is a pretty big deal. And of course, naturally, as you have a move like that, you've got some pullback and you've got some chop. And the reason why I have zoomed out here is, I just want to focus just for a moment on the fact that, this move that we had here is, it's very concentrated. There wasn't really a whole lot of volatility. We didn't have a whole lot of volatility. Even if you take a look here, the Bollinger Bands, they're very small. And then, we had this move here where we had more volatility. Bollinger Bands were increasing in size, and they were probably their largest, when we got right here in about June of 2022. And it was right before a time where we saw a big increase in the index. And even from this point to this point, we still had an 18, almost 19% increase. And so now here we are trying to make ends meet on where the market is going to go next. Now, nobody can predict the future, but we can, we can sort of get a good guesstimate on where the market's going to go based on price action. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put my 50 on there, and just to kind of look at the way the price action is looking right now. Obviously, we are starting to trend up. What I'm starting to see, out there on crypto Twitter land is the fact that there's a lot of people that are talking about this move here as a sort of like a rising diagonal, or an ending diagonal, right? We've got a rising wedge here, sort of in terms of potentially for an ending diagonal. Now, that I don't believe at this point means we're going to go straight down, even into that February 14th area that I had been talking about for a while. Right, I'd been talking about February 14th being, sort of a bottom, but the fact that we have sort of overtaken these levels here, we have basically a day to get back below those levels. So a day to get below 4,100, to get closer to 4,050 before we really have confidence that we're really going to see a significant pullback. Now, what I will say is in my portfolio, I am 10% net short. And that is what it is. 10% of my account is short and 90% is long. And really, it's been like that for a while now. And with day trades and things like that, basically offsetting the losses that are currently in that portion of my portfolio. So even though I do have losses in that 10%, that are unrealized, right? But I still look at them as losses. What we have been gaining, and when I say we, I'm talking about on the Discord, what we have been gaining in day trades has been offsetting those losses in a bigger way. And I think that's really important to understand that when you see a trend, you need to trade with that trend, even though the longer term swings might be in a different direction. I'm only 10% net short on that particular particular directional bias. So is this an ending diagonal? Are we going to drop from here? Well, I mean, it would be really great for there to be a nice, double top here, which actually would be a triple top, because when you look at it, what we actually have going on here, I'm just going to go ahead and mark these out. We've got a top right here, we've got a top right here, and we've got another top right here, and then we're working on this top right here. So this is really the fourth time we've tested that level, at roughly 4100 to 4120, ever since we had this cliff dive here back on September 12th. And so, with that, I do have to, sort of look at this with the bias that we may continue moving up, which means, equity is good, day trades are good, just watching and seeing how things resolve over probably the next day, two at the most. That's really going to be indicative of what's going to happen over the next couple weeks. But right now, I mean, things do kind of look strong. And I'm going to talk about Bitcoin also here in just a moment. But looking at this, we do have evidence that there is the potential for a leading diagonal here into an A, and then 3 waves up into the B, and then we have 5 waves down here into wave C. So a good correction right here, and just a couple things from a time cycle standpoint. Now, I have been talking about time cycles quite a bit. If you've been following me for any amount of time, I have started to focus more and more on time cycles. And if I zoom out, what I had started is I looked at this dominant pivot high here on Labor Day of 2020 and this dominant pivot low right here on October 30th, 2020. It lasted roughly 2 months. Not exactly, but pretty close. It lasted, let me try and get that, 57 days. All right, so a Fibonacci number is 55. So it could be that I'm off by a couple days here. But looking at this, we've got some confluence with this. And, I did a whole video discussing this. And usually what we have seen, and not every time, but typically what we see is at each of these time cycles, there is a little bit of a pause and a pullback, right here, another one, a pause and a pullback, right? And right here, we had a low and then a move up, right? And then we had a low here and a move up. Right, here's a pullback right here, and that was a high, and it moved down significantly into the next time cycle, which was down here, where we had a significant move up into this time cycle high, and then we had a significant pull down into this time cycle low. You're kind of getting the idea here. A significant move up into this time cycle high, and we pulled back, and we're starting to go back up into this. So more than likely, right, we're starting to see more confluence with this particular time cycle. And again, just because that I've identified this as happening here in recent history based on something that happened, roughly almost 2.5 years ago, or 2 years ago or so, doesn't mean that it's going to happen again in the future. But we are approaching this level here, and it's going to be roughly around Valentine's Day, right? And we're continuing to move up. Right, so probably what's going to happen is, we're probably going to get a little bit of a pullback here, but I think we're probably going to see a move up into this. Now, it could be that what we're going to see is something that looks a little bit like what we saw back here, right? It's possible that we see that, in which case this would go down a little bit lower, this would go up not as much, and then off of that we see a more significant sell-off, because that again is what happened there, and we went down about halfway into the time cycle before we did a little bit of a rebound. So if we do a pullback and we do a little retrace into Valentine's Day, that's what I would be looking to see. If we continue rising into Valentine's Day like we did here, again, I would still be looking for a pullback to occur when we reach that time cycle, which is going to be on February 14th, roughly, right? That's Monday, February 13th. Maybe we have Black Monday. I don't know. nobody can predict the future. And, anybody that says they can is lying to you. Nobody can predict the future. Nobody absolutely knows what's going to happen. All we have is probability on our side to make an educated decision on where the market looks like it could be going next. And right now, it looks to me like we are either going to continue to increase up here into, potentially 4261, and that would be almost a double top here. Or we're going to see a pullback starting today or tomorrow, and then we basically have less than 2 weeks now. We have less than 2 weeks before we get into that February 14th date. And we'll have to kind of watch and see how things go. We're starting to get a little bit of warnings here on the WaveMaster indicator on the daily. So just being very careful. All right. I'm going to go and take a look at Bitcoin, but what I want to do here is I want to compare the S&P 500 from 2021, right? So if we take a look at the S&P 500 from right here on New Year's Eve 2021 going into the New Year's of 2021, right? The end of 2020, beginning of 2021, we were right here. What I want to talk about is what we have, and that's, I'm going to go ahead and mark that right here. Right there, that's our level. And we basically had a huge move up and a huge move down to get right back into this level. Big move up, move lower, and we're starting to move up and out of here. And again, that's based off of New Year's of 2021. So let's go ahead and move on into Bitcoin. And I also want to do the same thing. What happened after New Year's of 2021? Right, that's going to go right into here. Okay, so Bitcoin going into that 2021 area, which is going to be right here. Just something that I want to point out, I want to focus on, is the fact that the S&P 500 is higher than it was in New Year's of 2021. Bitcoin is not. So that is a sign that risk assets are really not where money is flowing into, but more they're flowing out of. Are they flowing into the stock market? I mean, that's up for debate because, again, it's been a pretty volatile stock market as well. But, looking at this, Bitcoin is still a great asset long term. It just hasn't kept up with the S&P 500. If you take a look at the S&P 500 over the last 2 years, you basically would be net positive. If you take a look at Bitcoin over the last 2 years, you would be net negative. And I think that's important to understand, and that's important to point out. Now that I've mentioned that, let's go ahead and zoom in just a little bit here and just focus a little bit on what we're seeing. And I'm going to make a small adjustment to this because I realize that my wave C really hasn't, it's really not great. Looking at this, it's possible that we have a 3, 3, and then working on this 5 wave to go up here to about 27,000. Are we going to get up here? Chances are pretty good that we are. Is this wave 3 in? It's possible that it's not quite yet. I've been bullish all the way since, really closer to the end of December. I've been pretty bullish, and that has, that's paid dividends since then. Do we have a little more upside? Yeah, possibly. I would be very careful once we get up here to the 2618, because then when we get there, we're going to see a pullback. And, how low is that going to go? This wave 4, we can't predict wave 4 until we have the completion of this wave 3. So once we start this pullback, what we're going to be looking for is a good place to be getting into, sort of a swing long position to get up in here into this 28,000 area. Because again, this is probably also going to hit sometime in the next few months. More than likely, we're going to get to this 27,000 area. Now, does that mean that I think that we're going to go down to $10,000, $11,000 down here to this 618 and this negative 236? That's not necessarily what I'm saying, guys, because if we get through this, right, And just to be clear, the measurement that I'm taking here, right? So just to point out, the measurement I'm taking here is this dominant pivot low, this dominant pivot high, and this pullback here. If this is an expanded flat, then we're probably going to get up here to this 1618, because fact of the matter is we've already passed through the 123.6, which is, let me grab that one. Here it is, 123.6. Actually, we're at it right now. We're actually at it right now, so I apologize, I was incorrect. That was at 24,286, and the high that we have right now is 24,258. So is it possible that this flat is done? Yeah, I guess it is possible that the flat is done. I wouldn't expect that it's completed here. Wave 3 might be, but again, that wave 4 is going to be coming back, and then we're going to see a move up here into wave 5. So for me to have confidence that wave 3 is in, which technically speaking it could be, for me to say that wave 3 is in, I have to start seeing this cluster. Let me just zoom in here really quickly. I have to see this cluster really lose its support, because right now it's got support. So this cluster right here, which is going to be roughly in this zone right here, if we take this out, right, so again, if this wave 3 is actually in, we're going to be looking for this wave 4, which is going to be a little bit lower. So let's just go ahead and measure this here for just a moment and try and make a determination on where wave 4 would be, assuming that wave 3 is in. So let's go ahead and get our template here for our wave 4. Wave 4 is going to be right here at 20,845. That would be a really great place for there to be significant support, mostly because we've got this entire cluster right here. Okay, so this cluster is going to be that next level of support where it's very, very likely we're going to see strong support. So if Bitcoin can do something like this, get under here, find that as resistance, right? And then we find that as resistance again, and then go down in here into wave 4, that would be ideal. And then we can see that stronger move back up to get up here into this level, which is, you know, really the target right here, the negative 236 is at 26,664. Let's put the negative 382 on there. Let's see here, right here, the negative 382 is going to be up here at 28,260. Also realizing that the 1618 from the expanded flat, the 382 from the entire move down, it is all in this area. So again, this is the zone that we want to see lose its support. And the next zone that we want to pay attention to close out of things, it's going to be right up here. This level is going to be significant resistance, okay? And that is, my friends, where I believe we're going to see significant resistance and rejection from this level. Is that going to be the top for the year? That remains to be seen. There's more and more bulls that are getting on board, but we're still seeing a lot of short squeezes, which gives me a little bit of pause to actually short the market in any significant way. Now, when we get up there, let's watch fear and greed. Let's see what that looks like, and then we'll make a determination on where things are going to go from there. But I would certainly be looking to, you know, move a little bit to cash up here in this area. You know, again, I mentioned that I'm 10% net short, and that does include crypto, right? So 90% long on crypto, 10% short, and, you know, that ratio has been working really well over the last, you know, 2 months, roughly almost 2 months. It's been working really well. So with that, this is kind of what I'm looking at for Bitcoin. Now, again, if it pushes up through here, it's going to find a lot of resistance here at about this 25,500 area, which is going to be the 2618. Now, you know, let's not forget that we did find significant pause here at this 1618. So it would make sense for us to find significant pause at the 2618. And, you know, again, let me throw the 3618 on here. I haven't looked at this, but if we do push through this, it's probably going to be, you know, squeeze style. And it's likely to go up here to basically 30,000, almost 30,000 exactly. 30,265 is where that next target would be. if we do happen to push through that 1618. But really, we have to push through this 1236 in order to get to the 1618. And if we get through this 1618, well, then we're probably going to see prices move up more significantly into this 32,700 level, or even as high as almost $40,000. But it's too early to make any predictions like that. Really just taking it one day at a time. And what I'm really trying to do is to provide useful information to you so that hopefully you can make some informed decisions on where we think the market is going to go and be able to actually take some actionable trades. So hopefully this does help you at least a little bit. Again, I'm not going to talk so much about the macro of Bitcoin right now because, in my opinion, it's a waste of time to take a look at a macro at the moment. Super macro and bullish, right? There's no doubt about that. The US dollar is going to decline and Bitcoin is going to increase in value because, just in case this is your first time watching and you don't know anything about the US dollar index, the US dollar is the global reserve currency. But if the US dollar loses value against other currencies, anything that is priced against US dollar is going to increase in value, right? Because if the US dollar is worth less, that means that stable assets or assets like Bitcoin in particular, which is a global asset, if the US dollar is decreasing in value, well, Bitcoin is going to increase in value significantly. And that happened with the Turkish lira, that happened with the Russian ruble, it happened with a lot of other currencies in the past, and that is exactly what would happen with Bitcoin if the US dollar lost its value. All right, so yeah, I think I'm good here. I'm going to go ahead and get ready for the day. If this video did help you in any way, shape, or form, you know the deal. Like, subscribe, share. If you want access to any of the trades, we had several trades that went almost 100%, and we had at least one trade that went over 100%. Yesterday, we played Tesla, we played the Qs, we played NVIDIA, SPX. They were all just absolutely printing cash after 2:30 yesterday. Wait for the trend shift. Wait for the momentum. Take advantage of it. Harness it. Be there and be ready. And when it's there, it's there. And if you miss it, you miss it. You'll have to wait for the next time. There's always going to be another time. But if you need access to all of that, you can find all that information on bitdoctor.org. You can also email me. My email address is mybitdoctor@gmail.com. And last but not least, wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a good day, good night, and a good evening. Take care, everybody.